And good morning, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter as well. My name is Mike Avery, and this is another edition of Behind the Mic. Good morning, bird poop. Poops. I don't know what that is. Josh, good morning. How are you? Hunter over on YouTube. How could you see the stream? That's interesting. The live stream. It makes no sense. I hadn't gone live yet, and I already had a comment. Sparty, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How are you? My name is Mike Avery, and this is another edition of Behind the Mic from the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. Russell checking in from Tennessee. Chris checking in from Kansas. Nice to have you along with us. Well, hello, Di. How are you? Happy birthday tomorrow. It was fun. Boy, wasn't that Chris Stapleton show nice? I think probably the best show I have ever seen. Travis is with us over on Instagram. Bruce is with us. Jason's with us, checking in from the Ford Dearborn truck plant. Captain Joe's with us on Instagram. Mark, John Callison, good morning. Martin, how are you? Brian, and Mad Jack's with us on YouTube as well. My name is Mike Avery. This is another edition of Behind the Mic here on Mike Avery Outdoors. Johnny's with us. Going to check that spot that I hunted last year. I'm getting ready to go to White River, Ontario. Hey, Gus, how are things at Pizza Sam's? Seaboing checking in. Ed Bolanowski checking in. Cincinnati checking in. Doug, it's hot and sticky, he says. Hot and sticky just about everywhere right now, I think. Lori, good morning. Lori is back from her noodling adventure. We will have her on the Outdoor Magazine radio show next week to talk more about that. Jim Goss is with us. Jerry's with us. Elliot. Elliot, it's interesting. Elliot said that I dodged the storms last night. I slept right through them. I didn't even know we had any storms. I saw a post from Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand Meats. Michigan Brand, okay? Got him in the studio this morning. These are the honey glazed smoked beef. We'll be eating those later. I saw a post from Nick that said he had a tree down in his driveway. Nick lives about 4 miles from me. So we got some storms in my area, but I didn't see them. Paul says, good morning, heading to the west side for Salmon. Keep up the great work on supporting and representing us. Speaking of Salmon, two big pieces of outdoor news this week since we have last talked. Number one, we have a new state record king salmon, 47 pounds and change, caught out of Ludington last Saturday. Hunter Joe says he's got no power at his place. Johnny says, hey, Mike, what day is it? It's hump day. Thank you, Johnny, for asking. Hump day. Mike, what day is it? A new state record king, 47 pounds and change. I never thought in my lifetime I would see that state record fish broken here in Michigan. That record held here in the state since 1978. No power in Standish this morning. Doug says it's Walleye Wednesday. Not for me, it's Studio Wednesday. My Wednesdays are in the studio. And actually, I think my walleye fishing is probably done until I get back from White River, Ontario. And Matt Jack says that just never gets old. Bobby Sullivan, who is a charter captain on Icebreaker Charters. Now, I realize he's not the guy who reeled in the fish, right? But when you're fishing on a boat, trolling, let's be honest, especially at a charter trip, it's the captain who caught the fish. A young guy named Luis reeled it in, and congrats to him. But it was Bobby Sullivan, the captain, who put that boat in the right place. He put the right baits down. He was trolling at the right depth. He was trolling at the right speed. Dave says no power in Gladwin either. Good morning, Corey. How are you? Chris checking in with us over on Instagram as well. By the way, my name is Mike Avery. This is another edition of Behind the Mic here on Mike Avery Outdoors. It's Mike behind the mic. Bobby Sullivan will be with me on the first segment of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show this week to talk about that fish. How cool is that? Trail cam shows the wind then now is pointing to the sky. I'd say the tree blew down, eh, Ron? Chad says, great job, Bobby Sullivan. Amen to that. Bobby will be with me on the Outdoor Magazine radio show this week. How cool is that? The other big news, and this came out of the wolf meetings in Ishpeming last Wednesday, but we haven't talked since then. A former biologist for the DNR, the Michigan DNR, named Kevin Swanson, who I've had on the radio show, made a statement in front of the Wolf Advisory Committee saying that he had made observations about the number of wolves in the UP in his area, and the powers that be within the DNR told him he was wrong and to forget about it, which raised some big questions about the process our Michigan DNR uses. It raised big questions about politics in the DNR, and it raised questions about what is the actual size of the Michigan wolf population. Marty checking in from Scandia. Now, it does look like Kevin was only talking about 5 wolves or so. Tim Roller says, major congrats to Bobby on the new state record. A huge deal. Tim, it is a huge deal. Tim Roller, of course, one of his clients, caught a new world record brown about 10 years ago. And one of the first questions, Tim, I had for Bobby was, has the trash talk started yet? He said, fortunately, he hasn't gotten too much of it. Of course, there's been some, right? Good morning, WGTNS08 on Instagram. How are you? I wish Instagram used people's real names, because I would just as soon say good morning, Joe, or good morning, Bob, or good morning, Sue, as good morning, WGTNS08. Tim says it will. Elliot, interesting point. Says Elliot, a few of us APR guys, and Elliot is a pro APR guy, but he's not a radical APR guy, and I respect that for you. I respect you for that, Elliot. A few of us APR guys have been called crazy for saying the brass in the DNR is corrupt. Then Kevin came out and basically said the same thing. I talked with Kevin Swanson, tried to get him here on the Outdoor Magazine radio show. Johnny said 5 will turn into 100 someday. John switched over to Instagram. John, the audio is not as good on Instagram, although I did put a different mic. You can hear me tapping it right now. I'm not using my iPhone mic on Instagram. By the way, if you're just joining us, my name is Mike Avery. This is another edition of Behind the Mic, live from the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. I am live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram over here as well. Gary Morgan, Wild Game Dynasty, says, Raver Bait first says, it also brings DNR respect to sportsmen in the state. I don't know what that means, Raver Bay. I mean, there's no doubt the vast majority of people in the Michigan DNR are good people. No doubt. Gary Morgan says the DNR has some great employees. Absolutely. It's just frustrating to realize that our Pittman Robertson dollars are being mishandled or simply pissed away. I think I can say pissed away by the very folks that we entrust to handle it. Chad Bailey. Good morning, Chad. He's on the road visiting stores and doing tons of fill-in orders. Archery sales are booming at the stores right now, not long before the season is here. Scott checking in over on Instagram from Sawyer. So the two big pieces of news again this week, we have a new state record, Michigan king salmon, 47 pounds and change. I never, ever, ever thought in my life that record would be broken. It was set in 1978 by a guy who caught that fish, the long-standing Michigan state record in the Grand River in Kent County. A 30-pound king is huge, huge. To think of a 40-pound fish is incomprehensible to me. Incomprehensible? Pat, what is it? Incomprehensible. Pat is my thesaurus. Pat is my walking thesaurus. And to think of a 47-pound fish is absolutely crazy. Rayber Bay says the DNR. See, Rayber Bay, I can't go along with you to that extent. Rayber Bay says the DNR does not respect the sportsmen of the state if they are lying to us. Again, I will say I do believe, and I am convinced that the vast majority of Michigan DNR employees, from biologists to technicians to game wardens, are hardworking, conscientious, well-meaning people who have a respect for the resources of Michigan and a respect for the people of Michigan. The problem, in my opinion, like so many bureaucracies, is as you get up the food chain in the DNR, you go from hardworking field biologist, the closer you get to Lansing, and I realize the people who shut down Kevin Swanson, allegedly, were not in Lansing, they were in the UP, but the closer you get to Lansing and the higher up the food chain you get, the more they become politicians. You can't become a leader in the DNR in Lansing at that level without being astute at politics. It's impossible. Justin said, who's in bed with who? Jonathan said, if they are lying, what are they hiding or afraid of? I think in that case, if this is all true, it has to do with the size of the wolf population. Why, I can't really tell you. I don't really know. So anyway, Bobby Sullivan will be with me. And then, I got to think of his name, Wes, what is Wes's name? Jay Wesley. Jay Wesley, the DNR fisheries biologist who certified that new state record king and is the Lake Michigan Basin coordinator, will be on with me to talk about that and what is the status of the Lake Michigan salmon fishery. And I think right now we can say it's pretty good. Then Scott Keatsman of Linwood Taxidermy joins me to talk about preserving your outdoor memories. And I brought him on because this is the time of year when people are catching trophy king salmon. Bear season's coming up. I'm heading to White River here in a couple of weeks, so it's time to think about lining up your taxidermist. Amy Trotter from MUCC, who is on the Wolf Advisory Commission, was at that meeting. She heard Kevin Swanson's comments. I want to talk with her about her reaction. Also, want to see if she has any thoughts on this report that COVID has been found in the Michigan deer herd. That, to me, sounds a little bit fishy. That, to me, sounds like one more attempt to keep this pandemic in our minds. And I have to be honest. I don't want to go too far off tangent here, and I'm no doctor, and I'm no epidemiologist or whatever, but I do. Oh, Amy was noodling with you, Lori. That's very cool. I didn't know that. I'll ask her about that. I will have a very, very hard time if we get told we have to wear masks again. I will have a very hard time putting on a mask. I got vaccinated for two reasons. Number one, so I could go into Ontario on a bear hunt. That looks like that's going to happen. And the other is Jonathan's heading to White River on Friday for black bear. This Friday already, Jonathan? Good for you. Well, that's right, because the season opens at 15. I got vaccinated for two reasons. Number one, so I could go into Canada on a bear hunt. And number two, so I wouldn't have to wear a mask. So if I got vaccinated, and I did, and now they tell me I have to wear a mask, I'm going to have a real hard time with that. This week's Ask Avery question deals with how do you keep the bottom of your boat clean? Good morning, Bill Hoffman. Bill Hoffman, the most interesting man in Michigan. His daughter is the most interesting girl in Michigan. Maybe his wife is the most interesting woman. No, she's not, because my wife, Denise, is the most interesting woman in Michigan. And then in hour number 3, Richard P. Smith, he has sued or is suing the DNR over their management of deer in the UP. Bill Hoffman says masks on at U of M as of today. We're going that direction, right? It's all about, it feels to me like it's all about control. Also, we'll talk to Richard about judging the size of black bears. Bill. Greg says he went bear hunting once when he was 15. I love bear hunting. And of course, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner. A couple of more things I want to talk about before I actually start recording this first segment of the radio show, and that's why I am in the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. I got my hands on a Darton Toxin 150 RD crossbow. I told you that it was with, who is Richard P. Smith again? He's the outdoor writer from the UP that, much like me, people either love him or they hate him. I get that. I can relate to that. A lot of people feel the same way about me. That's because Richard is outspoken. He tells you what he thinks. Hey, good morning, Brent. How are you, buddy? Brent, you getting ready for Ohio? So I am, I think I've convinced myself that I am putting down the recurve, as beautiful and as basic and as instinctive and as pure as it is. I do not have the confidence in that tool that I should. So I talked to Ted Harpman at Darton Archery. I said, if I'm going to switch over to a crossbow, Bill says, Richard is much more hated than I. Don't say that about him. I like him. That crossbow, it was like night and day, obviously. And I got to be honest, it was a little bit intimidated. It is not a crossbow for a beginning crossbow hunter. 220-pound draw weight. 440 feet per second that thing shoots. The second day shooting with that thing, I was shooting bullseyes at 50 yards. Now, I would never shoot an animal at 50 yards. But the fact that it is so much easier to become proficient and even good with a crossbow is the appeal for many people, I think, including me. Good morning, Randy. You going fishing today? I don't think I'm going fishing until I get back from Ohio or Ontario, to be honest with you. Oh, yeah. You're going to enjoy that. Although you're not going to get the full experience today, Charlie, and I won't say more with 2 hot microphones. Michigan brand, honey glazed. Look what I got. Look what I got for us, Charlie. Yeah. Michigan brand, honey glazed, smoked beef. I'll take a picture of this so I can post it later, and then we're going to open it up. Mike's my favorite host. That's right. I bring them food. I bribe them. Have I publicly stated an opinion on HR 4080, the airbow? I have not, Bill. But I'm not in favor of it. How much time, guys? 2 minutes?
They got another 3 minutes to go.
3 minutes. Oh, my goodness. 3 minutes. Brent says, oh, my goodness. Brent says he's geeked. Reconstruction surgery on the 30th. So you'll be on the ground with a crossbow. I'm calling Ed, reference a toxin. For what it's worth, Brent, I don't think if I was you, I would go with the 150. Knowing about your situation, I think you're going to have a hard time cocking that 150. Even with the winch that comes with it. In fact, it is that 150 is. I was intimidated by it when I first picked it up and cocked it and shot it, and actually thought about telling Ted I'd like to go down to a Toxin 100. It's a lot of power, a lot of energy right there in front of your face. And after shooting a recurve for the last 2.5 years, that is so low tech. Yeah, Bill, there are some changes in the design. Number one, thank you, Pat. Number one, the trigger on the new Toxin is much better. It's a lighter trigger, which allows you to be, in my opinion, more accurate because you don't have to pull so hard to get the string to release. There are some changes in the design. I'm not a fan, I'll be honest with you, of the safety on the 150. I like the safety on the older bows. And I don't know. I mean, I'm shooting a production model, but I don't know if there will be, changes down the road in this or not. There he is, ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth, the legend, Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters just joined the live feed. I believe Ron still has some openings. If you want to go bear hunting in White River, Ontario, Canada, coming up here in a couple of weeks, you have to be fully vaccinated and you have to have a negative COVID test within 72 hours. But Ron has openings. He's on right now. Go to the website, northernwildernessbearoutfitters.com, northernwildernessbearoutfitters.com, or get a hold of me. I will get you Ron's number. Call him, text him. You're running out of time, but there is still time. Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters in White River, Ontario, Canada. I'm heading up there in just a couple of weeks myself. Could not be more excited. They haven't been hunted in a year and a half. There's no berry crop this year. The bears are wandering into town. Those are all good signs that it's going to be a good hunt. Ron and his guys have been out there. They're working hard to get the baits going. The baits are going. All right, my friends, about 7 seconds, I got to go to work, which means I'm going to switch from this microphone and this microphone to this microphone. But you will be able to stick around and watch as I record the first segment of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. In the meantime, try to stay cool. I would encourage you, if you can, to join me tonight at 7 o'clock for another edition of Wednesday Night Live. If I can get a hold of Sherry or the folks at Freakin' Pickles, I think we'll give away some Freakin' Pickles tonight. Just because I picked up some Freakin' Pickles the other day and they were so freaking good, I wanted to give away some Freakin' Pickles. So we'll see. All right, my friends, I will not be able to directly interact with you. I won't be able to answer your questions as I have been somewhat now. But I'll see you tonight. Have a great day, my friends. Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. My name is Mike Avery, and I look forward to this time sitting here in the studio for 3 hours behind this microphone talking about the outdoors, the great outdoors here in the great state of Michigan and occasionally beyond. And another reason I look forward to being in the studio today is it's air conditioned. It has been a little warm, hasn't it? A little warm, a little muggy, a little miserable, which is kind of what we expect from August. The other day I was out mowing the yard in the middle of the day. Don't ask me why I did it in the middle of the day, Avery. Why didn't you wait until the evening? Which was bad enough. And then I went out and shot my new bow in the middle of the day as well. And I thought I was going to melt into the grass. I have not. This is the second week in a row where I have been here in the studio and have not been fishing since we last talked. There's something wrong with that, isn't there? There is. Because of, I was telling you last week I had some projects around the house. That's pretty well wrapped up. Now I am getting ready for a bear hunt in White River, so I'm doubling up on my workload, and I just don't have time. But I feel like I'm not missing much because my friends who have been out there on Saginaw Bay say it has indeed really slowed down. But if the east side of the state, the walleye fishery has slowed, the salmon fishing on the west side is on fire. I'm sure you've heard this by now, but we've had two really big stories coming out of the outdoors here in Michigan in the last week. The first one is we have a new state record king salmon, a Chinook salmon. That record has been in place since 1978. A guy caught a 47-pound and change king out of the Grand River in 1978, and that record has held since then. And I never thought in my wildest dreams that that record would ever be beaten. I keep expecting our state walleye state record to be beaten, but I never thought we'd get a new state record king salmon. Last Saturday, fishing out of Ludington, Bobby Sullivan, charter captain Bobby Sullivan on Icebreaker Charters, had a crew out there, and they caught a 47-plus pound king salmon. Now, think about this. If you've ever seen a 30-pound king, you know how big and impressive that fish is. I think the biggest one I've ever seen is 30 pounds, and it was a monster. And then you think of a 40-pound fish. I can't even imagine that. I used to hear about 40-pound fish out of Lake Ontario, and I thought, that's crazy. That's as big as you feel like it was a pig in the water. And they got a fish pushing 50 pounds. Wow. Now, congratulations to the angler on the end of the line, a young guy, Luis. And so he can say he caught a new state record king salmon, and it's probably going to hold for years. But let me, and no disrespect to the angler, but I will tell you this: when you're fishing on a charter boat, it's the captain who caught that fish. He didn't have the rod in his hand, but it's the captain who caught that fish. Bobby Sullivan, congratulations, Captain Bobby Sullivan, because it's the captain who decides where to fish, who decides what baits, who decides how deep to put them, who decides how fast to troll. The angler on a charter trip reaps the benefits of the captain. So Captain Bobby Sullivan, congrats to you. Now, Bobby is going to join me here on the Outdoor Magazine radio show after the break and tell the story. I'm excited to hear that. The other big news coming out of the outdoors here in Michigan this week, there was a wolf advisory committee or commission meeting in the UP, I think it was Ishpeming, last week. And the big news to come out of that was a former DNR biologist named Kevin Swanson, who I have had here on the radio show before, made a statement in front of the commission that really raised some questions about, well, several things. And in essence, what Kevin says was that when he was a field biologist, he reported a certain number of wolves in an area based on his firsthand observation. He reported that to his supervisors in the DNR, and they didn't believe him, and they took those numbers out of the wolf survey. And Kevin was not really happy about that. Now, Kevin, I've talked to Kevin about this and asked him to be here on the show. He has declined. He said he's really not going to talk to anybody about it. He said he made his point and he's going to move on. And in reality, the numbers that Kevin's talking about are only maybe 5 wolves. So we're not going to significantly skew the size of the Upper Peninsula wolf population based on the alleged underreporting of wolves in the area that Kevin Swanson was responsible for. But it does raise the bigger question about, okay, if it was happening in that area where a field biologist says he's got a certain number of wolves, reports it to his superiors, and they don't believe him and they don't include those numbers, if that's happening in other areas as well, then you could significantly skew the guesstimate on the wolf population. But regardless of actual hard numbers, the bigger question it raises in my mind is accountability and whatever happened, we voted on this. What was it? Proposal G, that all wildlife decisions in Michigan would be based on sound scientific information. And if you've got a field biologist who is making observations and reporting based on his experience and his time in the field to somebody up the food chain, and they tell him basically to forget about it, you're wrong, what does that say? What kind of questions does that raise? So we haven't seen the end of this one. I'll tell you that. I will tell you that. So unfortunately, I can't get Kevin on the show, but I will have Amy Trotter from MUCC coming up in the second hour. Amy is on the Wolf Advisory Committee, and she was at that meeting where Kevin made those statements. I want to get the reaction from MUCC on that. In the meantime, what else is going on? Oh, I did get my hands on a Darton Toxin 150 RD crossbow. I've been going back and forth about whether to put down that beloved recurve that I've been shooting for the last 2.5 years. I love it. It is archery as it's intended to be, in my opinion. It is pure, basic, simple, beautiful, instinctive, close up, close range, in your face, 15 yards or less, and I love it. But I felt lately like I wasn't as proficient with that tool as I should be to go in the woods and hunt a critter. And I just knew that I wasn't going to put the time into it required to get that level of proficiency back. So I thought, I'm going to take a look at a crossbow. Oh, I know. Yeah. Crossbows are evil. They're poachers' tools. No, they're not. And I thought, if I'm going to shoot a crossbow, I want it to be a Michigan-made crossbow. And I've got a long-standing relationship with the folks at Darton Archery. So I reached out to Ted Harpham and I said, hey, here's what I want to do. What do you think? And he says, I'll get a bow for you. And he actually sent me their top tier bow. It's the 150. Now, I will tell you this. This is not a bow for a beginning crossbow shooter. In fact, after hunting with a recurve for the last couple of seasons, I will admit to being intimidated by this thing. It's got like a 220-pound draw, 440 feet per second. It's a lot of energy to have right there in front of your face. And I'm not used to that after hunting with a recurve. But it's very, very impressive. And it reminded me of why people shoot crossbows. Because you can reach a level of proficiency quicker and easier. Maybe it's taking the easy way out. I can't argue with that. But if the ultimate goal in any hunting situation is to make a quick, clean, humane killing shot, and a crossbow will allow you to do that, and in my case, my recurve, I didn't have the confidence I felt I needed, then why not? And that's what I'm going to be shooting here in a couple of weeks in Ontario. Whether I will actually take a shot at a bear or not, I don't know. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine show after the break, Bobby Sullivan, the charter captain who caught that state record king, Jay Wesley from the DNR, the guy who certified it. Then in hour number 2, Scott Keatsman, taxidermist, Amy Trotter of MUCC. And in hour number 3, Richard P. Smith talking about bears and whitetails. And we'll wrap it up with Chef Dave Miner. You already know how to get a great price on a rate see-through ground line for fun. All right, my friends. Hey, Paul, how are you? If you go Paul Perona VersaSkins, if you go to versaskins.com, versaskins.com, use the promo code Avery20, Avery20. Get 20% off on anything on the website, and they now have price sizes up to 6X for the big hunter. At my biggest, I only wore a 3X, so a 6X is a big boy. Or a big girl. Let's not be gender discriminative here. All right, my friends, have a great day. Thanks for joining me over on Instagram and, of course, on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter as well. Try to stay cool today. And if you can, join me tonight at 7 o'clock for another edition of Wednesday Night Live. All right, my friends, have a good day.